Hello, it is 19th of April 2022 and today we're going to take a 2-hour ferry trip on Loch Katrine.
Today we went to visit Loch Katrine. The visitor centre is about 10 miles to the west of Callander. The loch is about 8 miles long and 1 mile at its widest point. It is also owned by Scottish Water and is a reservoir which supplies the city of Glasgow and has done since 1859. The water level is just under 6 feet higher than before it became a reservoir, and the water travels south through 25 miles of aqueducts and 13 miles of tunnels to the Milngavie water treatment works on the outskirts of Glasgow. Incidentally, Milngavie is spelt Milngavie, but apparently is pronounced Milngavie, which was news to me. The Scottish soldier, cattle dealer, outlaw and folk hero Rob Roy MacGregor was born at Glengyle at the western end of the loch on the north bank in March 1761. It is also the setting for Sir Walter Scott's poem The Lady of the Lake, which, as far as I can make out, has nothing to do with the Arthurian legend of the same name. Sir Walter Scott used to come here
with his family, spent many hours sitting on the beach. Just behind this island and this beach was called the Silver Strand. This is where he wrote his very famous poem, The Lady of the Lake. And in that poem, the Earl of Vaudeville and his daughter Helen took refuge in a castle on Helen's Isle.
Well, that was fun. So much fun, in fact, that we immediately turned around and headed the 8 miles back again to the visitor centre and the Sir Walter Scott. The Sir Walter Scott, you might be interested to know, originally ran on solid fuel. They did this when other steamers were converting to oil because it's a reservoir and it was easier to keep the water clean. However, since 2007, it has been converted to run off biofuel. Ben Venue is 729 metres at its highest point, which makes it a Graham, a peak with a height between 610 and 762 metres. The next highest classification is Corbett. The name Ben Venue comes from Scottish Gaelic and means miniature mountain. After arriving back on dry land, we drove eastish back through the pass of the Trossachs. Shortly after the halfway point between Loch Katrine and Loch Earn, there is a trail that heads off southwest. This was our starting point for the ascent of Ben Venue. The trail follows the course of Earn water for a bit, but before long a bridge crosses the river before meandering a bit and then heading uphill in a southwesterly direction, passing through woods. After a while the woods start to thin out and a heather-lined path curves around the southern side of Ben Venue. Then it gets steeper and heads northwestish, leading to a cairn. Then it's an even steeper rocky ascent heading east with a slight wiggle to the north. Well, it was definitely worth the climb, if only for the views. I think this one is looking roughly northwest, overlooking Loch Katrine. If I rotate anti-clockwise a bit, so I am looking more west-northwest, I think you can see Loch Earn on the left, and the little pool that lies a bit nearer is probably Loch Tinker. This view is looking north. You can see Brennacoil Lodge on the left and Ellen's Isle on the right. The ferry terminal is off to the right of this view. Then we have the obligatory photo of the hardened climber at the summit, triumphing once again in the trials of pitiless nature. A bit further on and you can see this. I believe this is looking east over Loch Earn and Loch Venacher. Callander lies slightly beyond the end of the loch. So, that's about it. Mission accomplished. All that remains now is to head back the way we came and drive home for our tea. Do a Google search for Glen Ample and you will find a wealth of information about raspberries. Other search engines are available. In fact, Glen Ample is a valley that runs from Loch Lubnaig in the south to Loch Earn in the north. It lies to the west of Ben Vorlich, which others in the party decided to climb. That sounded too much like hard work, so Bill kindly drove me to the southern end and joined me for the early part of the walk before heading back to the car. By the way, these photos were taken at Callander some time before we set off. The early part of the walk is fairly steep, climbing up through woods. Then the woods start to fall away and the ground becomes more level, with higher ground to either side. This must surely have been a route used for many centuries, although I understand there have been recent modifications for the benefit of forestry. There was a fairly large bird of prey about, but we couldn't get too near, and this is the best photo I got. However, wheat ears were somewhat easier to snap. I think this is a male. There were occasional glimpses of peaks, although I wouldn't like to say which one this is. Then it's back to the wheat ears. This one, I think, is a female. Unlike the male, the black cheek is absent. Then there's the butterflies. This is a peacock butterfly. I'm not sure what this is. It could be a skylark or possibly a tree pipit. Not a great photo. Although this one's a bit better. Some of the puddles on the path even contain the next generation of frogs, or is it toads? Nice weather for April, and the scenery wasn't too shoddy either. After lunch, which I had by a little round pond, I spotted a male chaffinch amongst the birch trees. I also spotted a European robin and a tree creeper. I believe this is a siskin. More scenery and stunning blue skies. And then I found this attached to some sort of wooden structure fenced off in the middle of the field. I'm not sure who Rafael Cruz Conde Este Tangilis, but if you Google it, it seems to lead to two famous families with a history as lawyers and producers of sherry, but nothing as far as I can tell to do with Scotland. Odd. Eventually the path starts to slope downhill towards what appear to be farm buildings. However, I found this sign on a fence, so maybe the buildings have more to do with the hydro scheme. In any case, the footpath now follows a path between a fence and the burn of Ample. At this point, if you stop and look southeast, you can see Ben Hour and I think possibly Ben Vorlich. From then on, it's just a matter of following the road alongside the stream until you come to the road that runs along the southern edge of Loch Earn. Here you will find Glen Ample Castle. This is a 16th century tower house which has undergone much remodelling over the centuries and is now a private residence. Then I walked around the western end of Loch Earn to get to Loch Earn Head, where I caught the C60 bus back to Callander. If I had done this walk 60 years earlier, I could have caught the train. Right folks, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Look back for further adventures in Scotland at a later date. Bye.